Hello, everyone. This is episode number 200 and
112.
12. Thank you. Of ads with the Unbreakable Spirit.
And the Executioner, Daniel Travis.
Yeah, we are continuing the topic we discussed last week on the crossover episode because let's face it, we just ranted so much and we thought, why not continue
Yeah, let's
doing
just
that? Because
continue it.
that's what we're known for on the podcast. 30 minutes
Yes.
on my what?
Alright, anyway, why it is a dumb ass decision to prejudge a product before you even see the damn product. Well, what's the first example you can think of prejudging a product before you even see said product?
This might actually play into, but the Titans adaptation of Starfire.
Yeah, that is.
Like, people were prejudging it just based on images from the first few episodes. Eventually, she wore the same outfit for like an entire season.
Yes.
Like, that shit must have been stanky.
That is also true, yeah. Like people were prejudging the Titans. Speaking of Titans, people were prejudging the Titans version of Dick Grayson before we even saw one episode of that version of Dick Grayson.
And Beast Boy.
And Beast Boy. Okay, here's an example that I'm gonna use that I know you gotta figure this out, but people were probably prejudging Robert Downey Jr. when he got cast as Iron Man 18 years ago.
Yeah.
Hell, people are prejudging him when we haven't even seen the first trailer of him as Victor Von Doom yet.
Yeah, it didn't dare at the Super Bowl.
Yeah, so like,
My guess is Comic-Con.
yes. But we don't know. It's just like people are like, oh, it's gonna be a weird. I'm like, or it could just be him just being Victor Von Doom.
And then there's that whole Tony Stark was adopted theory, so maybe Tony was born a Von Doom but got adopted by the Starks? That's a
It's a
topic for another time. Maybe film theory can cover that.
okay. Here's another topic. All right, here's another prejudging a product before we even saw it. Ben Affleck's portrayal of Batman. I know we talked about that, but it was like people were prejudging his portrayal just from like the tiny clips we saw, and then we saw the movie. Then we're like, like
The
okay,
theatrical version wasn't too good. The Snyder cut was too long.
yes,
And of course,
like
PBS wasn't a cinematic masterpiece.
no. Another thing that I thought was like another Marvel or DC thing that people got a prejudgment on is what was it? People were like prejudging some of the like animated some of like the new 52 animated movies before they even released, or any of the Tomorrowverse movies before they even released.
Hmm.
I mean, like, is it a good idea to prejudge a product? No. Why? Because every universe is going to be different.
Yeah, I think it's even worse when people compare pre previous iterations of a character that has, let's say, a movie coming out. The best example I can think of is Superman.
Yeah, you had David Cornsweet, who hadn't even had his first movie at that point.
Being compared to not only the Superman and Lois Tyler Hoechlin Superman, but also the Henry Cavill Superman.
Yes, those are two completely. Those are two completely different adaptations of the same character.
Yeah, and they were
One with the
comparing it like the problem with prejudging and debating which is a better adaptation is prejudging, like, you have expectations that are more than likely not gonna be met. But comparing is unfair because you're comparing an IP who you already have a example of to something in the same IP who hasn't even had a chance to show you what they can do yet.
Sure. Okay. Here's an example is when here's a great example. The guy that played Colin Farrell, the guy that played him the Penguin. People were prejudging his portrayal, and people didn't even realize that that was Colin Farrell
Yeah.
before the Penguin. It was like, wait, that was Colin Farrell?
Yeah, because he had a bunch of prosthetics on to change what he looked like.
Yeah, and then he absolutely killed it, and then people were prejudge like, people were already, like, they had an expectation for a show, and then he had a show, then it was like, "Holy crap!" Like, in
Yeah.
my honest opinion on prejudging a product, like, okay, I'm gonna use Lex Luthor as it's the perfect example. Lex Luthor in Man of Steel, in BVS, was a weird that was just a weird version of Lex
Yeah.
versus what we saw with Nicholas Holt, with James Gunn and Nicholas Holt's portrayal of Lex Luthor. Those are two completely different versions. Or like what John Cryer did in Supergirl, or what Tyler Llewellyn did in that one episode or the guy that played him in Titans, or Michael Kutzler, the guy that played him in Superman and Lois.
Yeah, I
Every
will
version of Lex.
I will say any of the ones you just mentioned are a better adaptation than Jesse Eisenberg.
Yeah, and this is after watching both
And to
of
be
those
fair, people,
versions.
we're not prejudging, that is post-judging because all of those have run their course.
Yes,
Except for Nicholas Hoult, he's gonna be in the world's finest movie or whatever.
yes. But like my point of prejudging a product is my point is, you know how there's like people, you know how there's like the multiverse in comic books? Every Earth, every version of a character is going to be slightly different from the next version. There's not going to be a one particular version. Like James
Yeah,
Gunn's version.
think of any reboot as a new addition to a cinematic multiverse.
Yeah, exactly. Like Robert Pattinson's Batman is going to be completely different from whatever James Gunn does. Whenever we get to that.
Yeah. That'll be
Okay,
in, like,
to be
what,
f-
2027, 2028, maybe 2029, I don't know what year it's coming out.
yeah, or like people were prejudging. What was it? Oh yes, Jared Leto's portrayal of. People were comparing Jared Leto's to the Joker to Heath Ledger's Joker. And to be fair,
And
they
I
were.
will say that it's not a fair comparison considering I'm pretty sure Jared Leto's Joker, at least in Suicide Squad, was part cat.
Ew.
You know, when he, like in the trailer, when he was, like, purring and circling that guy.
Yeah, being like, okay, then after you watch the Suicide Squad, then you compare it to Heath Ledger. It's like it's still not a fair comparison because Heath Ledger stole the damn movie.
Yeah, and to be fair, they were playing 2 different time periods of the Joker. Heath
Yeah,
Ledger's let's get that out of the way. He was the psychopath. He was, I wanna say, Bronze Age, modern age Joker.
yeah,
Meanwhile, Jared Leto was the
cat.
Golden Age crime boss, I think it was? Or it's
Yeah,
Golden Age median. I think Golden Age was Crime Boss. I don't know. I'd have to do research on that, and I don't want to have to do that during this episode.
yeah. Another example is okay. Here's a perfect example: Godzilla. Every version of Godzilla is gonna be different. Like every single version of Nightwing is gonna be slightly different.
Yeah, it's gotta be hard to change how you interpret Godzilla, though. I'm just saying.
Yeah, it's either he's a protector of humanity or he's more of just like screw you.
I'm gonna destroy humanity.
There's no in between. Okay, like here's another example of prejudging a character. Like okay, people were prejudging Jason Momoa's Aquaman before we even saw his first. Before we even saw. I know we had that small clip in BVS, but we didn't really
Yeah,
get,
that
like, a
cameo.
clear yeah, we had a small little cameo, and people were already I don't know if people are prejudging his portrayal of Lobo that he's gonna have later this year.
Well, Jason Momoa has wanted to play Lobo.
He thought he was gonna play Lobo instead of play Aquaman in BVS.
And keep in mind, the only Lobo that I know of that they have to compare it to is the Krypton Lobo.
Yeah, that is a fair point. Like, here's a bigger question, and this is a question I'm gonna put out there on this podcast, and even you could answer this, but that is, how do you prejudge a comic book character adaptation when said character has never even had a live action adaptation?
Can you give me an example?
Okay, sure. Jason Todd from Titans.
Okay, so how would we prejudge a character before they make their live action debut?
Yes,
That's actually a good question. I
because you
don't
don't
think people do. They judge the casting, not the character.
okay, because like you can't really because honestly, guys, you can't really prejudge a comic book character when there's not really been like take Tim Drake from Titans. He's the only live action version of Tim Drake. You don't really have a whole lot of things to compare it to when there's only ever been that version. When that person is setting the standards for any other version going forward.
Yeah, I'm glad you bring up a Robin adaptation because the bad thing about Emily's sidekicks is they get compared to other iterations of the sidekick, even if the person holding that mantle is a different person entirely.
What do you mean? Please explain.
Like, Tim Drake was probably being compared to Jason, Jason was being compared to Dick, Dick was being compared to other interpretations of Dick.
Yeah, hell, Damien, who we don't like, there's not really anything to compare Damian Wayne whenever we get to that because there's not a live action version to compare it to.
I just hope they haven't be, like, mixed ethnicity because let's face it, Talia is not white.
Yeah, but anyway, besides that is like another big problem with prejudging a character is like people were prejudging Stephen Amell's adaptation of Oliver
Green
Queen's
Ar
Green Arrow before when the only other live action adaptation up to that point was the one in Smallville.
Yeah,
That's not really a Smallville version was just Oliver Queen with a crossbow that could turn into a bow and arrow and didn't really have had like goggles or something. Didn't really have a good look costume. But then you
uh
have the one in the air.
wait, a crossbow that can turn into a bow and arrow. What's the point of changing to bow and arrow if you already have a crossbow that can fire arrows?
Point. And then I guess because it would make you, I guess because I don't know, but also it's just like when you compare that to like Stephen Amell's adaptation, Stephen Amell's the one that Greg Berlanti created. I know Batman exists, but it's just like, hey, because they couldn't do that with. They basically made They made Green Arrow from Smallville or Batman. Not really. Wasn't really that Batman to be honest. But then the Green Arrow from the CW,
According to according to Elseworlds, Green Arrow was the original vigilante, even though we know Batman exists.
yeah. But then we got the Arrowverse one, where it's just like that version of the Green Arrow had aura to begin with. Like once when we saw that version, like okay, this version of the Green Arrow has some aura to him. Like because like seriously, when you compare like the Arrowverse Green Arrow to the comic book Green Arrow, Batman, this is an actual thing. Batman doesn't have a contingency plan for. Versus this version, you might actually need a contingency plan.
Yeah, I just thought of another comparison that people were making, not no, and this will contain spoilers for Joker Will Do.
No one cares
People
about
were
that anymore.
comparing Joaquin Phoenix's Arthur Fleck to Heath Ledger's Joker. The reason I don't call Joaquin Phoenix the Joker is dies in Foila Do, and so he's obviously not the Joker.
Yeah, but like people were comparing Margot Robbie's. I don't even wouldn't even call it a Harley Quinn because it wasn't even a Harley Quinn. That movie was so weird. It was just like,
You mean Lady Gaga's Lee Quinzel?
yeah, Lee Quinzel. That was just it was so weird that you were just like, what? That movie was just weird, honestly.
I have a feeling she wasn't real by the end of that movie, but we'll talk about that off recording.
Yeah, okay. Here's another thing that people were prejudging of, and this is a character that that I feel like people have always pre. I don't understand when people prejudge a TV show adaptation or hell, even a video game adaptation before said video game adaptation is released. People were prejudging the Arkham games even though we all knew that the Arkham game, like even though like the Arkham games, the later ones were voiced by Conroy.
Well, okay, only like two Arkham games were not voiced by Kevin Conroy.
Yeah, only two. Yeah,
Origin and Arkham Shadow.
sure. Yes, but other than that, like people were just like, yeah, you know what? Yeah, like okay, people like people. What's another example of a character I can think of? Yes, I don't understand. What's a character that you think that people are prejudging that they should not prejudge, or that why it's stupid? The floor is yours.
Supergirl. People are comparing Milia Clark to Melissa Benoist.
Yeah, where
And like that is really the root of the problem. We had what 4, 5 seasons to
six.
get to know 6 seasons to get to know the Melissa Benoist version of Supergirl. We had one scene in Superman, Amelia Cox. Her solo movie is coming out later this year, and people are trying to decide which suit of Millie is better when the only visible difference is the belt.
That's incredibly.
After this, I'm
That
gonna
is
send
also
you a picture that I have saved on Facebook just so you know what I mean.
okay, here's another example of people prejudging is people were judging Michael Keaton as Batman before even the internet was even a damn thing.
So they were comparing Michael Keaton from Batman 1989 to who? Adam West
Adam
from the
West.
60s TV show?
Probably.
Oh my god. That's not even a fair comparison. I mean, sure, someone dies on the first episode of the 60s TV show and Michael Keaton kills the Joker. That's not a fair comparison.
Like okay, like another fair. I don't really think this one was a um a fair comparison, or I thought it was kind of stupid to prejudge. People were prejudging the Josh Brolin as Thanos before even he made his first appearance after the end of the first Superman. No, after the first Avengers movie.
Well, wasn't he in the post-credit scene for that?
Yeah, he was just there turning around. That was it.
But then you heard his voice at the post-credit scene for Age of Ultron, and you're like, okay, Marvel's been cooking.
Yeah, yeah, because, okay, here's another example, in my honest opinion. Look, here's why I honestly believe it is incredibly dumb to prejudge a character or any version of a character is that, yes, like I said, every version is going to be different. That is remotely the point. But also, every director or actor is going to put their own spin on said character.
Not to mention, no one lives forever. Eventually, your favorite version of a character, whoever plays them, they're gonna bite the bullet and they're gonna have to cast someone new. Like, the
Exactly.
Batman fandom suffered this loss very, very recently with the passing of Kevin Conroy.
Yeah, very, very recently. Yeah, but okay. Here's another example of okay. Here's another perfect example. I don't understand why people prejudge if a comic book is making like an animated like I know we're getting at some point this year a Nightfall movie at some point. Animated Nightfall movie. We don't
Animated,
even know.
right?
Yes, animated. We don't even know what they're even gonna. We know nothing about that movie. We don't even know who they're even gonna cast as Batman or Bane.
Oh, okay, I know I'm gonna be a hypocrite here, but I'm kinda hoping Bruce Greenwood or the guy from Arkham Shadow, Roger Craig Smith.
Yeah, but
But if he were still alive, I would campaign for Kevin.
yeah. See, cause here's my point. That every okay, what do you think is the dumb thing that people? What's your opinion on people prejudging? Honestly, why it's stupid
I
or
feel like we're actually gonna have a prejudging in the video game space very soon because from what I've heard, Justice 3 is happening.
that should be intriguing.
And as people who hopefully played these games because they're awesome, in my opinion, no, Kevin Conroy was the voice of Batman.
Which is why things gonna get interesting.
But we don't know. This is probably gonna be the last Injustice game, let's be real, because Netflix has no plans for WB games.
Yeah, my honest okay, I know I've said look, the reason okay, I'm just gonna say something here is that like I don't understand when people genuine alright, how do I put this in a way? Every when people prejudge a character or the version of a character is that to me why it makes no sense is every version is gonna be different. Every character adaptation is go people are always gonna tweak the character. If my whole philosophy is, look, people I don't mind if people tweak the character as long as it makes sense for the world that you're making. Otherwise, don't do it.
Yeah, alright, my timer just went off. I had it running on my watch this entire time. So I don't think we should do final thoughts for this episode because let's face it, we're gonna return to this topic
At a later date.
at a later date. But we'll be back next week with wrestling, followed by the Elimination Chamber prediction battle, and then a crossover over episode. So we have a lot of wrestling coming in. Thankfully, we get a crossover the first week of March. But thank you for listening. Follow the podcast on social media. Links in the description below. You can follow us on social media. You just need to type in the handles because I am not putting those URLs in the description. We'll be back next week with more debates and discussions, but until then, the Executioner and the Unbreakable Spirit will still be at odds.